right, so the assignment was to examine that photograph and determine what evidence, well, write a search warrant so you can recover evidence, and then determine what evidence you thought was applicable. So, since I already started talking to you, I'll continue. Off your search warrant or off the top of your head, what are a couple things, Christian, that you thought were important to get into or to recover in the apartment here? The hammer? And why was that? Sure, yeah. If it turns out to be a weapon, if this turns out to be a crime, because we haven't determined it's a crime, we're going to do an investigation to find out it's a crime. It could be a medical emergency with a guy with a messy house. It could be a mannequin. It could be like nothing. It could be, for instance, I will tell you, I had a call years ago where it was a welfare check. They go on a check on this elderly lady. We haven't heard from her in days. And we get there, we knock on the front door, nobody answers. We're starting to get kind of a bad feeling. We go around the back, we look in the sliding glass windows, and we can see behind the couch, like an ottoman area, we can see just her legs sticking out, laying on the floor. Like, oh, okay. Let me just kind of check in the boxes. You know, it's probably an emergency. We're probably gonna have to make entry and check on her. So we just give it one good last bang on the back window before we end up kicking the door probably. And she gets up and she just walks to the door and answers it. Her back was hurting. She's, I like to lay on the floor when my back hurts. I've been, I just haven't called my friends in a couple of days. There's nothing wrong. Why are you in my backyard? No crime at all. Strange, but no problem. I mean, she didn't answer the front door when we knocked on that because she didn't feel like talking to anybody. Just the strangest thing. And I thought, I would have bet my paycheck that person was probably dead on the floor and we were going to have to, there's some sort of, at the very least, a medical emergency where somebody died of old age. At the worst, there was some sort of crime or a crime scene that we need to investigate. So that being said, we don't know this is a crime scene until we investigate. We'll keep going around the room. What was something else, or what did you decide that you needed to or wanted to recover that you saw in there?
The wine.
The wine.
The bottle and the wine cup. So
there's a bottle and a cup, and it looks like the bottle might be open. Tell me about that and why.
I say the wine because sometimes you never know what kind of person you have they can afford. You either got somebody who bought tainted wine, or you either have somebody who's have a bad liver and they drink wine, even though they know they have a bad liver.
And so that could be important to the coroner if it's not a crime, or even to determine if there is a crime.
It could be like alcohol abuse too.
Or it could be an idea of somebody else that was there. There could be some sort of evidence to demonstrate that they weren't the only one there. It could be that if there's no alcohol in this person's system, whose system is it in, that it can answer some questions or could create some questions. Either way, it could help us. The whole point of investigation is to find the truth. We'll keep going. What?
The two main things that I saw that I wanted to pick up were the wallet that's on the desk right to the left.
The wallet. Okay, yeah, right in here. Oh no, there's a wallet right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's also what looks to be a syringe by the wine bottle that I saw.
That does appear to be possibly a syringe. Yeah.
I decided that those are the two big things.
Tell me. Well, we'll start with syringe. Tell me why that's important to you.
It could be possible drugs.
Okay.
That was the first thing that came to my head is okay, maybe it's a drug overdose. And then it also has like DNA evidence on it in case it was put into somebody. You could get evidence of who was stuck with it.
Yeah. And
then for the wallet, it's just identification, finding out kind of what this person was like, who was. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So for those who you have either experientially or have taken the drug recognition classes, what is the most likely type of drug in a syringe? Heroin, absolutely. It is not exclusive, but almost every time. Heroin is going to be the drug of choice in a syringe. And then the wallet. Tell me why you want the wallet.
It should, I mean, most people carry their driver's license in their wallets, identification, just trying to find out who this person is. And like, just, some people have like health insurance cards in there and stuff like that, so maybe you can investigate that more.
Sure.
See if they have any issues.
And is it outside the realm of possibility that this crime was committed by somebody else who was invited in the house that may have forgotten their wallet? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options here. If that's not his wallet, then we want to start asking whose wallet is it. I think it's obvious it's him. It appears to be him.
Well, my first was the syringe.
Oh, he gaffled it from you.
But then it was the air hammer. What appears to be an air hammer.
An air hammer.
Yeah.
Let me see.
That's with the cord on the floor.
Oh yeah, some sort of drill or something like that.
I mean, if it was an air hammer, I assume that it would be the best tool to cause somebody harm in the temple without leaving much of a evidence or like no blood or anything like that. It could,
So I've never heard the term air hammer. So that's foreign. Is that like a nail gun?
Kind of. It's like I researched it. That's how I know.
Okay, I thought maybe I was about to lean on your air hammer experience.
No.
Like you went to air hammer college.
No. I mean, my dad uses it.
Okay.
I don't know what the actual term is, but it's like an air hammer. I mean, like you can. It's I don't know.
Does it shoot nails?
No, it like uses force. It's like a real hammer, but like.
Oh.
electric. I don't know.
Anybody else familiar with an air hammer?
No.
You have one?
No, actually, I thought it was
Okay. I think they're similar. I think one just maybe just different methods of getting it
Yes.
through the wood.
Yeah.
You used to make air hammers?
Oh no.
You invented an air hammer?
No. I thought we
Oh, you wanted your turn.
Yeah.
Geez, enough about your air hammer. Let's talk about weed. I've had enough of you and your air hammer talk. Please.
My biggest one was the phone on the couch.
The phone on the couch. Okay, tell me, yes, I see the phone on the couch. It does appear to be next to some other object, but tell me about why you were interested in that phone.
Because if someone did come in and get invited in the house or anything, you could look up past text messages of who that person talked to and see who was supposed to come over, if there was any evidence on that, and who it is. And if he was, I mean, you could tell by pictures and anything if they're a drug addict
Sure,
or
yeah.
anything like that. I mean, you could get a lot from a cell phone.
There's a lot of incriminating evidence on cell phones. I agree with you. One, if that's our victim or the subject of our investigation, if that's their cell phone. And again, same as the wallet, if it's not their cell phone, we're gonna start asking questions like, whose is it? If it's not their cell phone, you can get text message data information from it. One of the biggest ways that I used to use cell phones is location information. You can write a search warrant and find out where that cell phone has been in the past, or even real time. You can find out and get real time updates. If we were looking for somebody specific and I knew who I was looking for, but I didn't know where they were, but I knew their phone number, I can find them. You write a search warrant for their cell phone, and you find out where they are. You get real time information pinging that cell phone. And then just cell phone. Okay, then we'll keep going.
I said the wallet and the bottle and the wine.
The wine glass? We talked about the wine a little bit. Tell me more about the glass. Why were you interested in the glass?
Fingerprint. And usually like males will drink the beer, which looks like a beer bottle, and like a female can drink out of the wine.
So yeah, so we are profiling a little bit. Is it criminal to profile people? Is it against the law to profile people? No. Now, we have terms like racial profiling, right? And obviously, without getting too deep into the weeds, that is very problematic. But I will just back that up a little bit. Is it unlawful to use, and we'll stick with race. Is it unlawful as an investigator to use race as a criteria to solve crime? I'm gonna jump ahead, you'll still get your turn. Tell me why it's not, or tell me your thoughts on using race as a criteria for enforcement action.
Well, a lot of times, like, especially if you're talking to a witness or something like that, race is one of the biggest, like, identifying characteristics of somebody. So like,
Heck yeah.
if you have like a missing person or whatever, you're gonna say like their age, their gender, and their race, because that's how you can identify.
So solely using race as a factor to make enforcement decisions, absolutely problematic, if not criminal. But exactly what you were just saying, if somebody said that the criminal that robbed them on the street was a female Hispanic, and you see me walking down the street, are you just gonna say, well, I can't think about race, I can't think about gender, I'm gonna stop and just, maybe he did it? Probably not. You're probably wasting your time. You can't use these types of criteria to narrow down your search. What you cannot do is solely make your enforcement decisions based on these demographic criteria. So thank you, excellent. Then continue, please, and tell me about what you want to recover this for.
Well, it's not really something that I wanted to achieve necessarily, but more just the search would be like on the back patio. The sliding door looks like it's open, and maybe his apartment is elevated, so somebody could have entered, but just kind of like as a point of entry, or like just to see what's going on back there.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's part of the apartment. It's part of the crime scene. You want to see what's out there. An item can easily be discarded out there. You may not see it here. You may not be able to use it as your rationale or your probable cause, that's a more legal term, to write your search warrant. But once you get in there, you're going to want to know if there's something there. And combine that with, while this is open, it appears the blinds are open. If those blinds weren't open, I'm sure you'd have a lot of questions as to maybe there's somebody still out there. So we want to make sure, one, for tactical and safety purposes, we want to make sure there's nobody out there, and we also want to see if there's any evidence out there. Excellent, thank you. What are your thoughts? What else? What do you want to see?
I think you already said the little green bottle at the coffee table.
The green bottle on the coffee table. It doesn't sound familiar, but let me take these. So yeah, it looks like maybe like a Perrier bottle or some sort of liquid bottle.
Right.
And then next to that is what appears to be like a regular water bottle, bottled water. Why are you interested in those items?
Maybe you could collect like DNA from it, because they've been around it.
DNA is huge. Fingerprints, depending on the surface of the bottle. Not all bottles are fingerprintable, but you never know. DNA will stick there. And I mean, if there's lipstick, chapstick, things like that. I mean, you want to get kind of deep into it. Perhaps if it's an item that isn't commonly sold in the area, that's going to pique your interest. Well, it's not sold here. Where was it sold, and how did it get here? Maybe our criminal brought it into the crime scene.
Or it could be not water.
Absolutely, you want to find out what it is. Maybe it's poison.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to check it, have it analyzed. That's a great point. All right. So, computer on the couch. Yeah, looks like there's a laptop there, a closed laptop. So that's a different kind of evidence than our DNA and our physical stuff, although it is physical. Tell me about what kind of evidence you think you can have on a laptop, or why you want that. Sure, I'm sure that since it's transportable, if it connects to different Wi-Fi's, there's something evidentiary about that, finding out where it's been, finding out recent searches. If we have the most recent search, how to commit suicide and make it look like a murder, it's gonna be interesting. How to commit murder and get away with it. You know, there's a ton of things that if you saw that recently searched, it's gonna cause you to ask some questions. Excellent. So those are some excellent items. If anything pops out in my head, I see that we have an open Clorox bleach container. Why is the fact that it's open piquing my interest more than if it's closed?
Because that means someone like used it recently and people use Clorox like disinfect and get rid of stuff.
Yeah. If I touch that wipe and it's wet, what does that tell me?
It was recently.
Recently opened at least, yeah. So what, it has been open for a long time. And if he lives alone and he's been dead for a couple days and this is still wet, what could that be indicative of? Somebody's come and gone, maybe? Yeah, really, and I think that's a really big piece of information that we want to know if somebody's been there after he died, especially using a cleaning tool. Let's see too much else. There is a bag right here, a plastic bag, and it appears that this could possibly be female undergarments under this green chair. If he lives alone, there's female undergarments, then it's going to pose some questions. Every one of these questions I want to say easily. Every one of those questions that we've asked can be answered with a legitimate, innocent resolution. There could be a rational reason for any of those items. But our job in this is to investigate, to find the truth, to find out what those rational reasons are. All right, I want you to, either whatever you're going to use to take notes, either on your computer or on a piece of paper, I want you to write the following words: spice. We're going to talk about searches. We already know that we have a search warrant, because we wrote a search warrant to get in. So a search warrant will give us the legal authority to search things, search locations. The search warrant that you wrote in this particular occasion, if it were signed and approved by a judge, would give you the authority to search this, what appears to be an apartment, loft, condo. We're gonna call all those things residences. Sometimes you'll hear me call it a house, even though I'm not talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be a single family dwelling. To search a home. Because the threshold to search homes can be a little different than the threshold to search a business, or the threshold to search your person, or the threshold to search your car. We're going to talk about the differences. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the very beginning then. I told you that the threshold to search a home is different than it is to search, for instance, your car. I didn't say whether it's higher or lower. What do you think is easier? Is it easier for me to get into, easier for an investigator to get the legal authority to search a car or a home? Car. Why? Because it's a moving vehicle. Yeah, that's the rationale, yes.
Smaller space.
It is smaller. Yeah, and it's also not as much as you love your car, it's not as personal as your home. There's that term, a man's home is his castle. A person's home is their castle, to be gender neutral. So if a person's home is their castle, like that is yours, that you absolutely have certain rights to that home that you don't necessarily have to your vehicle. So it is very difficult to search a home without the search warrant that we talked about last week. However, that same threshold, the same amount of evidence, if you were to see this right here in a car, we're going to take out the body because we're going to talk about the body kind of throws in a little bit of a snafu because I believe it was Zoe last week talked about how we may not necessarily need a search warrant because we're going to rush in and see if they're still alive and give them medical treatment if necessary. But if you throw out the body and you just see some evidence, you know there's some evidence that you want to recover, to go into a home where you know there's evidence, you almost absolutely need a search warrant. But that's not true for a vehicle. You said it's smaller, and I believe you said it's a moving vehicle. You used the word moving. Tell me why you used the word. What about the moving aspect of that made you bring that up?
Well, in the book, it had made comments about how, if there is any evidence that could pertain to a case, that they would need to go ahead and get it before the vehicle was out of the vicinity or if it was moved.
Boom goes the dynamite. Exactly. That house isn't going anywhere. The house isn't going to up and drive away while you go get a search warrant. That car might, though. If you see evidence in a car or know there's evidence in a car that you want to recover as an investigator, and you leave to go get a search warrant, the odds of that car still being there when you get back aren't great. Because it could leave at any time. So we're gonna call that the vehicle exception to the search warrant rule. Vehicle exception to the search warrant rule. If you have a vehicle and you have enough probable cause to believe that there is evidence in that vehicle, you do not need to go get a search warrant in general. So as we're talking about this, I'll say, this is an acronym, by the way. SPICE is an acronym. S, I'll give you a good guess. What does the S stand for? And this is all different ways we can search something. Search warrant. S for search warrant. Search warrant. So this threshold to get a search warrant, despite the fact that in vehicles, we said there's an exemption. When we don't have that exception, like in a residence, we need to get a search warrant. We already said the search warrants are signed by judges, but we need a certain level of knowledge. We need probable cause. That is the legal threshold, which I would define as a fair probability. So, in this scenario, we'll go back to Zoe. Given what you see in this picture, as you're writing a search warrant, you're trying to convince a judge, hey, I do have probable cause to believe a crime occurred. What are some of the factors in your probable cause? What about this picture made you believe it, give you a fair probability that the crime occurred? There we go. I think that's the biggest one. Yeah, there's a person laying on the ground. I think that's absolutely crucial. There is a still person on the ground that we can't waste. Again, we're going to overlap some of these thresholds and these rationales because, as Zoe said, we're probably not going to wait to get a search warrant until we check to see if they're alive. However, I'll keep that scenario. In this scenario, and I'm going to go back. Since Zoe brought it up, you were the one that brought it up last week, right? About the body. So put yourself in the shoes of the first responder to this scene, and you see that with the body inside. What are you going to do?
You're gonna, go in, like,
How are you going to get in?
you're gonna open up the door is locked, you're gonna, how would you call it? Break it in.
There you go. You're going to do what it takes. You're going to make forced entry to get in there.
Forced entry, that's all.
Okay, we'll call it forced entry.
Yeah.
I read a book once. You're going to kick the door down. You're going to do whatever it takes to get in there and see if this person needs help. Now, are you going to get a search warrant first for that?
No, because there's a person in there who might need help.
Right. And you don't think the law is going to require us to go to a judge first before we find out if they need help? Anybody else think that we got to go talk to somebody?
Not if you just stumble upon the scene and you're patrolling and you see this.
Yeah.
You're gonna go back and wait to get a search warrant. If you already have like the probable cause and you need that search warrant, then you're gonna wait, right?
Let me see. I want to pick up what you're putting down here. So if I think there's a crime going on in here, maybe I think that there's human trafficking or gambling or something like that, and I've got a whole plan, and I arrive with a search warrant, and then before I serve that search warrant, I look in there and I see that there's somebody laying there. Is that what we're saying?
Or not, or even if you don't have it at that point, if someone's laying on the ground, you just need force entry to help them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah. So no matter what, if we see somebody laying on the ground, the law doesn't require us to go and ask. Like as an investigator, you're still a first responder. You need to make sure that this person is okay. So we don't need to leave and go get a search warrant or ask permission. The first priority is saving lives, protecting lives and property. So we're going to protect this person's life. We're going to go in and make sure they're okay. Now, once we go in and this person is absolutely deceased, and there's nobody else in there, we check to make sure, because we also want to make sure there's nobody else that's deceased or somebody else, just because we find one person that's deceased, maybe somebody else still needs help. So I'm going to tell you in this story, no curveballs. You check the entire residence and there's nobody else there, nobody else needs help, and that person is no longer with us. They're no longer living. That is a deceased person, a dead body. Now what? And you're also standing next to all this evidence. Now what? Say again?
You get a search warrant.
You leave and get a search warrant. Why?
Because you can't collect evidence from a search warrant.
It's still, exactly, it's still a residence. It still has those higher thresholds. So you did what you needed to do about the emergency, and then you exhausted that emergency. That, is a dead body an emergency anymore? Does he need help? No, there's nothing we can do. So we're gonna need that search warrant. So we may not, when I say leave and get a search warrant, we may leave something there to protect the crime scene. We're gonna talk about crime scenes a little bit in the upcoming chapters. We may not literally all just pack up and leave and come back. We're gonna protect that crime scene, but then we're not going to search or recover any property without that search warrant. So as for a search warrant, you know what, we're gonna skip ahead all the way to the end. E, we just talked about the E, and maybe you didn't even realize it. Close. So we are going to make entry based on two words that start with an E. One is more legal than the other, but one is easier to remember than the other. Exigent circumstances. E for exigent circumstances, which could be defined as an emergency. The legal term, exigent circumstances. So in that scenario, when we saw the person lying on the ground and we weren't sure if they were alive or dead, there were exigent circumstances. We needed to make entry. We didn't have time to get a search warrant. If somebody is in the middle of killing somebody else, that's a crime. Can we admit that's a crime? It's somebody's residence and they're getting ready to kill their spouse. We don't have to, well, it's a residence, I gotta leave and go get a search warrant. No, that's an exigent circumstance. We're gonna kick that door down. We're gonna make forced entry regardless, even if it's unlocked. Because the law, as a reminder, the law doesn't see locks on doors. That door could be locked, forcing somebody to kick it, or use a battering ram, or hit it with a search warrant, tools for a search warrant, or it could be completely open. The threshold is all we care about. Walking through that threshold is the exact same level of legality as it is kicking open that door to walk through the threshold. The residence is protected by the law. So once that exigent circumstance, that emergency is resolved, and in this case it was resolved by finding out that that person is deceased and there's no more emergency, then we need to go get that search warrant. The P. The P is what we need to get a search warrant and also will allow us to search others without it, or other locations without a search warrant. P for probable cause. So in the case of residence, probable cause alone is not enough. We have to use that probable cause, document it, and go get a search warrant. However, we just said that in vehicles, for instance, we don't necessarily need to go get a search warrant. Just merely the probable cause will give us the legal authority to search that vehicle. So in this case, Ms. Porter said that having a dead body is a pretty good piece of probable cause. Having what appear to be possible weapons in there, a syringe, which may be indicative of drug use. All those are crimes. So if you see those things, can you say to yourself, there's probably a crime, there's a fair probability that a crime occurred? That's all you need for probable cause. Now, if you have that probable cause in a residence, we said you still can't go in, you still need a search warrant. You have that same level, those same facts in a vehicle, you can't, because that vehicle might leave. Here's the curveball. That same vehicle has all these things in it, no emergency, but there is no engine and no tires on that car. Do we need a search warrant? Why? Exactly. That the rationale for this exception, I keep going backwards, exemption, exception. The rationale for this exception is that that car might not be there when I get back. But if it has no wheels and no engine, it's probably still going to be there when I get back. So that exemption does not apply. P for probable cause. Now, if in this scenario we walk in, that person turns out to be dead, And what you don't see in the picture is just off to the right is a person holding a bloody knife. Are you gonna have some questions for that person? I think that goes without saying. But before you can ask them any questions, they yell out, "I killed him." In fact, here's a videotape of me doing it, and they hand you, well, videotapes are old. They hand you a cell phone with themselves, a selfie of them killing this person. There's no doubt, no curveballs. There's no doubt. This person says I did it. They admitted it. They've got a picture of them doing it. We really have little doubt as to whether or not they killed this person. Are you going to arrest them? Miranda, you could read them the Miranda rights, and if you did read them the Miranda rights, and then they still said it again, I killed him, I did it, I was not self-defense, I planned it out, it's 100, I 100% knew it was against the law, and I'm mentally stable. Like I got nothing. Take me to jail.
Yeah, yours.
Okay, so they're gonna go to jail at that point?
Well, I think we could, interrogate them.
Sure.
After the fact.
We'll take them to the station, or we even sit them down there. We'll record the interview, and they confess again. They know everything about the crime. They know who this is. There's no doubt in your mind they did it, and they confessed 3 times now. Once outside of Miranda and twice inside Miranda. And they showed you a video of them doing it. Are we cool with the rest of them now? I am. I'm good with it. Okay. You're gonna take them to jail. They've got that knife in their hand. You probably took that out of their hand, right? Or asked them for it. Politely got that out. They've also got, they tell you they've got a gun in each pocket and drugs in their back pocket. More heroin in their back pocket. You're gonna drive them to jail. Are they allowed to have the gun and the drugs in jail? No. What is our legal right? We have to have something on this chart that gives us the legal right to take those items off of their person. We have to search them, right? We have to have a legal authority to search them. What legal authority, what have we do have anything on the, we've already discussed that would give you a reason to search them? You don't have a search warrant that says you can search them yet, right? You do, what probable cause do you believe? What are your factors that would give you a probable cause to believe they have a gun and drugs? They admitted to a murder. And they also said they had them. So we do have probable cause to say. But I'm going to back that up, and now I'm going to take that away. Are you still going to, if you say, hey, do you have any guns and drugs on you? And they say, nope, sure don't. Are you going to believe them? Do you think you're still going to search them? Well, you don't have probable cause to believe they have anything on them. They didn't give you any indication, and you don't have a search warrant that lists them on it. Even if you got a search warrant, you didn't even know they were in there when you served it. So they're taken on jail. They're under arrest. I think we all agree they need to be searched, but we got to figure out how we're going to legally do it. I agree with you. We are going to search them, but how?
Isn't it like the first, as long as it's on the outer layer, you can search them? Isn't that?
That would be a pat down.
Okay.
Terry frisk.
Yeah.
A Terry frisk, and we're probably going to talk about that. But if we want to get in their pockets, a Terry frisk wouldn't apply.
Because they're in the scene of the crime, in the scene of the murder.
They are. So they're under arrest.
Yeah.
If you are under, or if somebody is under arrest, automatically, just merely by being under arrest, that person and their person is subject to being searched. They are subject to being searched incident to arrest. I'll say that again. Merely by being arrested and taken to jail, that person and their person is subject to being searched incident to arrest. And it is not just limited to their person. If you were going to arrest me and I was leaning on this coffee cup in this scenario, would you be interested in what's in this coffee cup? I bet you would. I would. Regardless, I mean, maybe I'm hiding my weapons in there. maybe I hid some poison in there, maybe I got more drugs in there, maybe there's no coffee in there at all, maybe it's a clean, dry coffee cup with a bunch more heroin in there. But it's not on me. I said you're able to search their person, incident to arrest. But that's not in my pocket. I was leaning on it, or I was leaning next to it.
That's still considered in the residence, so you would have to have the search warrant for the residence.
That would be still in the residence, but I submit that you would not need a search warrant. I submit that this is part of incident to arrest. Because anything in my dominion and control or wingspan, I control. Could I, when you came in, could I put something underneath here? Absolutely. This is in my wingspan. This is incident to arrest. Not just this. So the I in SPICE, incident to arrest, includes wingspan. What if we throw me into a car? I'm sorry? The whole interior of the vehicle. Because in a car, for the most part, unless it's a very large car, anything inside that car is in my wingspan. I can touch just about anything in my car. Can I touch the trunk? Can I touch what's inside the trunk?
No.
Absolutely not. So that incident to arrest may not apply. Now, something I want to stress to you is that these can all overlap. I can have a search warrant, and then I can also develop probable cause. Like, just because I have probable cause and there's an exemption to a car doesn't mean I can't write a search warrant for a car. Many, many times when I would serve search warrants, we would know that they had a car on the premises and we would still include that in the search warrant. I just got done telling you that there's an exemption. I don't have to, but why not? Because what if one aspect of that gets thrown out of court and I'm protected by another aspect? And then when I get there, they were inside the car when I served a search warrant, and I'm going to search them instant to arrest, but I still got a search warrant, I still have a probable cause. Why not layer the different reasons why you have legal rationale to search?
Protect yourself in court. You know.
Right, because you may lose one battle, but in theory, if you got all 5 reasons,
You're good.
then one of them is going to be good. I'm going to put 2 more. This is actually SPICE PP. You should write that also. SPICE PP.
So what's the I, anything?
Incident to arrest.
Incident.
Search warrant, probable cause, incident to arrest. All right, next. If, well, I'm trying to make this as less curveball-y as possible. You walk by, you see this scenario, we'll take away the dead body, make it a little less crazy. You see this scenario and you see drugs on the table there as you're walking by. As an investigator, your interest is piqued. You're curious as to why they have drugs. It's probably illegal. You could go get a search warrant. You could leave and go get a search warrant. Or, well, we already said you have probable cause isn't enough for residents. You don't really have enough to arrest them. And there's somebody in there, in this scenario, there's no dead body, but that guy's alive, he's walking around. And you see the drugs on the table there. Can you knock on that door and ask him to search his house? Here's the crazy thing. You can ask anybody anytime. You can have a conversation with anybody you want as an investigator, as a law enforcement officer. You can have a conversation with somebody. I mean, you can't pull them over using lights to pull them over, but if you stop somebody or you walking down the street and you have somebody that it wants to engage you in a conversation, a consensual conversation, you can talk to them. And in the middle of that conversation, we could just be, I'll transfer myself back to when I was a patrol officer and walking up Footweed in downtown Los Angeles. There were just a ton of folks that I talked to. And some of those folks I had watched, days previously sell a dope. I could just, that day or the next day when I saw them again, just strike up a conversation. There's no law, there's nothing that stops me from just striking up a conversation with them. In that conversation, there's also nothing that stops me from saying, hey man, you mind if I search your pockets? And you would be surprised how many people just say, oh, yeah, go ahead, man. I don't care. And they got a pocket full of dope. They could have said no. They have the legal right to say no, but if they don't, if they say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Or in this scenario, you knock on the door, I don't want to go get a search warrant. Hey, that looks like heroin on your table. Do you mind if I search your house? Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. We have a legal term for that. Anybody know what that legal term is? Consent. And coincidentally, C is next. C for consent. You, as an investigator, you can always ask for consent. Why not? It's free. You can ask anybody you want. You can walk down the street, ask them if I can search your pocket. You can knock on somebody's door, ask them to search your house. However, they can always say no.
So how probable is it that someone would say yes if they're just having a conversation with like a stranger? How probable is it that they'll say, yes, you can search me or my house?
It happened more than half the, well, I didn't ask to search houses very often, but as an officer, as a uniformed officer in like downtown Los Angeles, I was over 50% of the time when I just, hey, you mind if I search you? You don't have anything on you, do you? No, good. It's amazing. And it's lawful. You don't need any type of probable cause. Just ask. They say, yeah, check their pockets. Now, do you think that as an investigator, as a uniformed officer, I was random about who I asked to search them? Do you think I just went into a store and asked the clerk, hey, do you mind if I search your pocket? Or do you think I was a little bit more targeted? Yeah, you think maybe in the back of my head, I suspected something was up. Like I said previously, like maybe I'd seen them sell dope before, things like that. Why not? Why not ask? I mean, I'm not looking to search every single person. So there's probably going to be a method to who I ask. I'm sorry, do you have a hand up? Oh. Consent, so that can apply to vehicles, persons, residences, in theory, residences, businesses, things like that. We already said the E. Who remembers the E? You guys wrote it down, right? Exigent circumstances, exactly.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so in the case of like, like an RV, let's say an RV is parked, and would that still be considered along with the moving vehicle, or would that be more of a residence?
That is great, absolutely great. From the most recent readings that I have done, if it is being used as a residence, then the residence rules apply. If it's being used as a vehicle, then the vehicle rules apply. And the easiest way that I can explain that is, well, currently there's a rash of, and I'll speak specifically to Los Angeles because I haven't seen it too much here, even in the Triangle. I haven't seen it too much. A rash of people like literally just living in their RV, like homeless, living in their RVs. It's getting more and more popular. It's cheap. Housing prices are skyrocketing. That being said, if it's on the side of the road and it appears to be this is their residence, then it's a residence. However, if they're going to Yellowstone and driving in this and get pulled over, then it would be a vehicle. And that's the most recent. That won't necessarily be on the exam, and that is from the most recent readings, and I wouldn't hold that to a legal standard. That's just my most recent readings. I wouldn't go to court on that one.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So say you had probable cause, like say you're patrolling and you see an RV and you think like you see the smoke or something coming out of it and you see probable cause, you get probable cause.
Smoke like it's on fire or smoke like
Like
dope?
it's from.
Okay.
You can still need to search for it if they're not moving, right? So if they're saying, no, you can't search my house, I live here, stuff like this, but it's an RV, you go get a search warrant, but then they can move, right?
It is strange, right? And that is where it becomes kind of a gray area. So we have some protections in place that I had mentioned really briefly earlier, where we say we can secure the crime scene. So you may be able to leave somebody there to watch it and make sure that they don't destroy things like that. Because, in fact, I'll get back to that because I want to give you an opportunity to talk, and I'm going to speak on that a little bit more.
Oh, I was wondering, when you get a search warrant and there's a garage, like a separate garage, like it's not connected to the house, do they put the garage in the search warrant?
They should. A good search warrant is going to be very thorough. A good search warrant is going to describe the entire property, to include the vehicles, detached garage, attached garages, attics, things like that.
Sheds like that?
Yeah, sheds. Trying to think of some of the more obscure things that we've written search warrants for. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you only can see the exterior, especially with commercial locations. So you would tell the judge, hey, this is what we're going to search, so I know how to search, and any other buildings or any other vehicles that I don't know about, things like that. Let's see, I want to talk about, so I want to give a scenario. Given that we've gone over these, exigency versus search warrants, walking by a residence like this, but instead of this, big pile of cocaine, just a comical pile of cocaine sitting on that counter. You know it's cocaine, and you're walking down the street, and you're on your foot beat as an investigator, as an officer, law enforcement officer. What are our options? You're looking through this window. This is a window of the house, and you see that's a residence and a big pile of cocaine with a sign in it that says cocaine.
No body.
You could ask, yeah. What is that?
Is there no, is the body?
Nobody. I'm just you see the same angle, but instead of a body, you got a big pile of cocaine. Can we go inside and get it? It's illegal, right? We agree that cocaine's illegal, but we say we can't go inside because of the protections of residence. So we can ask, we can knock. Hey, do you mind if I recover that cocaine you got there? Or what else? You can search one. We're going to be limited on incident to arrest because we can't get in there to arrest them to search an incident to arrest. So the next two, kind of a little dividing line here because these are unique. Parole, probation. We're not going to talk too much about the definitions of parole or probation, but we will say that there are search conditions attached to each one of them. Parole being when you're released from prison, and part of the agreement that you have that if you agree to stay out of trouble, I will release you from prison early. One of those agreements is you must let a member of law enforcement search you any time of the day or night, with or without probable cause, just merely by being on parole. Kind of like consent. You just come up to you anytime they want if they know you're on parole and search you, or your stuff, or your house, or your cars. Yes, ma'am.
Now, what happens if like you're on a sex offender list and you're on there for like a lifetime? Can they come?
I have never heard of probation or parole lasting a lifetime. I have heard of lifetime sex offender registries, but there is there's no PPS, no parole probation sex offender. So the idea of being a sex offender, while there is some punitive action there, the search conditions are not necessarily applied for a lifetime of sex offender. However, if that sex offender is released from prison on parole, then there's some parole search conditions. Or if that sex offender, instead of going to prison, was sentenced to probation, and part of their search conditions, or part of the conditions of probation are, you could be searched. Parole, almost exclusively, everybody on parole has search conditions. Probation has to have specified in their conditions that they can be searched. Not everybody on probation has search conditions. They have conditions to say, hey, you gotta be in this time, you can't have alcohol, you can't break the law, things like that. Many of them have the condition that you must consent to a search of your person or your property any time of the day or night with or without probable cause.